With Saturday being National Margarita Day, how fitting to follow with National Tortilla Chip Day. It's also the week of Lent, Wednesday being Ash Wednesday, so the Lenten season will begin. We're pleased this morning to have somebody that I've known for the last 15 years. It was about 15 years ago that a young graduate from the University of Mary from Bismarck Century High, the most famous football player to come out of Bismarck Century High up to that point, which was later superseded by a redheaded, tall 6'5" kid that ended up going number 2 to the Philadelphia Eagles in Carson Wentz. But Shane Van Patten joined the insurance industry and All-American linebacker from University of Mary, and enjoyed watching his career develop and grow, and we're pleased to have him this morning. I'm not going to take any more time other than to share a great story that he has that is quite meaningful and impactful in the area of long-term care planning and his personal journey with long-term care, having both of his parents have long-term care events when they were in their 60s. So without any further ado, Shane, share with us. We've grabbed our cup of coffee and we're ready to listen and to have some great ideas this morning. Shane? Shane, Brendan, is somebody muting Shane?
Shane does not look to be muted.
It dropped me off the call. Can you guys hear me right now?
We can hear you good.
We can hear you,
Did everybody drop off, or was it just me?
Just you.
Oh, well, that's fitting. And everybody can see my screen.
That we can.
All right. Well, thank you, Dan, for the wonderful introduction that I heard about half of. I'm sure it was wonderful, and thank you, everybody, for jumping on today's call. Anybody who knows me, I could probably talk about this topic for hours. Being I have 12 minutes, I'm going to jump right into it. As Dan mentioned, I'm Shane Van Patten, the Regional Vice President at E4 Insurance Services. I've been in the industry just over 14 years, primarily helping financial advisors proactively and intentionally integrate insurance into their practice. Today's topic of long-term care, specifically long-term care planning, is very near and dear to me, as both of my parents required care prior to age 70. Neither of them had a plan, and neither of them had any of that insurance stuff to help fund the plan. So today, I want to go over what is long-term care, how to create a plan of care, and then options to fund the plan of care. So we'll jump right in. What is long-term care? Long-term care is not a place. It's not an assisted living facility. It's not a nursing home. It's not adult daycare. Long-term care is not insurance. Long-term care is simply a disabling event that happens as people age. And if we don't plan for it, it can have severe consequences to our family's well-being. So when and where does long-term care begin? Most people think they have this vision of old age in a nursing home and totally incapacitated. Just thinking of flat on their back in a hospital bed, unable to do anything. The reality is that long-term care starts much, much sooner than that. The vision I want both financial professionals and clients to really think of is clients who need help getting out of bed in the morning, somebody around to safely make sure that they can take a shower or a bath without hurting themselves. That's where long-term care really starts, and it progresses from there. So if that's where long-term care starts, that's actually where we're trying to plan for. Because if we don't have a plan in place, that's where care is often defaulted to the spouse, the children, or the friends who aren't prepared and they haven't been formally trained how to do this. So what's the risk? Most people think the risk is that it's long-term care events due to an accident or chronic illness. I personally believe that long-term care is simply a longevity risk. Right? Due to lifestyle changes in modern medicine, people are living longer than they ever have before. And when I'm talking with a client, usually I ask them, do you think you can live into your 80s, 90s, or even age 100? And if the answer is yes, then I believe it's reasonable to assume that just due to the frailty of aging, that they might need some standby assistance for a period of years. What's their plan? More importantly than the risk is what are the consequences. So the issue is not the risk of your client needing care. The real issue is the severe consequences to their family's well-being if they ever did need care. I mean, if you can picture any client, 60, 65, 70, 75, who hasn't planned for long-term care event, and if you can picture them right now, and I want you to really think of what would be the emotional, physical, and financial consequences to that family if the husband or wife ever needed care and there was no plan in place. If you can't think of any, I'm going to give you some right now. If your client ever needs care, their life doesn't end. However, someone else's life or lifestyle will end. If your client needs care, they're going to get the care they need. If they don't have a plan, typically the spouse, the children, or friends are going to provide it. And that's when they provide care to a chronically ill person. It's very common that they become chronically ill themselves. Was that the plan? If a child has to step up, it will severely impact their life. And we're talking about a huge disruption to their own personal family. It's a disruption to their career, and it's definitely a disruption to their social life. Was that mom and dad's plan? And then financially, paying for care out of pocket disrupts all previous financial commitments set up to create the family's lifestyle. Was that the plan? So when I meet with a client, I'm typically, before we're ever talking about any of the options that can pay for a plan, is we have to create a plan. Now, creating a plan is, where do you want to receive care? Who's going to provide the care? Who's going to coordinate the care? And who or what's going to pay for the care? Now, the recommended plan that I usually bring up to a client kind of sounds like this. Mr. and Mrs. Client, all I want to do is help you create a plan of care. And I want to create a plan of care that allows you to remain safe in the comfort of your own home. I want to make sure that the plan protects the spouse and the children physically and emotionally by allowing them to supervise or manage the care, not roll up their sleeves and provide the care. And finally, I want to make sure the plan protects the financial commitments that you've already set up for your family so they can maintain their lifestyle. Does that sound like a good plan? And more times than not, most people think that's a great plan. So once we have a plan established, now I can lay out an a la carte of options and really educate them on what's viable to help fund their plan. So really the four things that we talk about are Medicare, Medicaid, Selfpay, and long-term care insurance. So let's talk about Medicare. There's a lot of stuff on the slide here, but Medicare is simply, it's a health insurance program. Even if you get through all the red tape, which there's a lot of it, the maximum it'll cover is 100 days. That's short-term care. That's not long-term care. And oh, by the way, care is received in a skilled nursing facility, not your home. Doesn't fit your plan. Next option is Medicaid. Medicaid is a welfare program, which means it's a viable solution for clients that don't have any money. Another way to look at it is it's a very expensive solution for clients who do have money. The example I like to give is a husband and wife who have $1 million in assets. Doesn't matter if it's in his name, her name, or joint. In the year 2020, the healthy spouse or the community spouse is allowed to keep just over $128,000. So for this client, we know that they would have to spend down just over $870,000 before the state's going to pay a penny. That seems like a pretty expensive option to qualify for Medicaid. And oh, by the way, care is received in a skilled nursing facility, not your home. It doesn't fit your plan. Next up is self-pay or self-insure. I look at long-term care is simply just a brand new expense that creates a monthly cash flow issue. The only way that a client can truly self-pay or self-insure is if they can come up with an additional $4,000 to $8,000 or more per month of income without disrupting any of the family's lifestyle. Now, this is where I work with a lot of financial professionals, financial advisors, wealth advisors who've created an income plan for the client. And they say, Shane, if Mr. and Mrs. Client needs care, can we just redirect some of that income to pay for the care? And my answer is usually, well, it depends. If the client is in a nursing home, flat on their back in a hospital bed, and they can't do anything, that means their lifestyle expenses have probably gone with them or been eliminated. Yeah, in that case, I believe we could redirect some of the income to pay for their care. However, if that client just needs help getting out of bed in the morning, somebody around to safely make sure he can take a shower or a bath without getting hurt, maybe even help getting dressed before they start their day. What I can promise you is that individual is still going to want to go on vacations. Might take them a little bit longer, but they still want to go on vacations. They still want to go to movies. They want to go to plays and nice restaurants. This individual still wants to spoil their grandchildren. How do we support that lifestyle and pay for this brand new expense? The answer is that we can't. Something has to give, either physically or financially, if we don't plan for it. Some additional considerations of self-paying are taxes, market conditions and timing. And I don't know a lot of clients that ever want to have a long-term care event, but if they had to choose, they probably didn't want to have it in 2008 when their investment portfolio was down 40%. And you also have liquidity concerns that can come up. Now, what's kind of alarming is anybody who hasn't put together a long-term care plan and identified what they could use to fund the plan, self-paying or self-insuring is the default plan. And if you really think of all the clients that you know that don't have a plan, how many of them truly could come up with an additional $4,000 to $8,000 or more per month without disrupting the family's lifestyle? And finally, we have long-term care insurance. You simply transfer some of your money to transfer some of the risk to an insurance company. I believe this is the only viable solution for clients that can medically qualify. The most important thing is long-term care insurance is not the plan. Rather, it helps pay for the plan. This is why it's so important to create that plan first. Once we create the plan, they give us permission to talk about any option available to fund it. If they choose long-term care insurance, we can talk about every product. So at the end of the day, I believe clients simply have two choices. They can either keep all their money and keep all their risk personally and accept 100% of the consequences to their family, or two, transfer some of their money and transfer some of the risk and mitigate some or all the consequences to their family. Now, if a client does choose to go down the long-term care insurance route, again, my personal recommendation is to select a highly rated insurance company and to really coach the clients and help guide them into selecting a policy that is meaningful and affordable for them. Some other important planning documents for the long-term care plan of care would be the living will, the healthcare directive, and a power of attorney. So in summary, be proactive with your clients, create a plan of care first, and consider funding the plan with long-term care insurance. Brennan, that's my summary. Back over to you or Dan.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Go ahead, Dan.
Really appreciate you sharing that. How long was your mom in a memory care facility needing care, Shane?
Officially 5 years. She should have been in there 8 years, and she was diagnosed for probably 10 or 11 years. So I say 5 years because my father, just like any spouse, tried to do anything and everything to keep her in the house as long as possible until he physically and emotionally, most importantly, destroyed himself. So she officially was in 5. She should have been in there for 8, had the actual diagnosis for 10 or 11 years. And my father did actually predecease my mother, and he was the primary caregiver. Right. Healthy individual prior to the event happening.
Right. Well, Brendan, can we open it for questions if we have any?
Yes, we can. I have unmuted almost all people. So if you have a question, now is your chance to speak.
Shane, I know you mentioned the cost of care. Your mom's last year in the memory care facility, what was the monthly expense that was impacting your family?
Well, the first 3 years she was in a memory care facility in North Bismarck, North Dakota. We were running probably at about $5,000 to $5,500. After 3 years of that, she was hospitalized. for pneumonia. She was in the hospital for 4 days. She did improve. They discharged her to a skilled nursing facility. At that point in time, Medicare covered her for the first 20 days. And day 21, they said my mother was doing so well, Medicare was going to no longer cover. The same day, her old facility, the memory care facility, came up and said, your mom's progressed so far that we don't have the services and support available to support her anymore. So she ended up at the skilled nursing facility, which put the cost to just about $11,000 a month. And I tell people that is after-tax dollars.
Right. Well, Shane, thank you for sharing. Anybody have a question, you can certainly voice that. Take yourself off mute. Otherwise, I want to thank Shane for sharing the insights that you have, the passion that you have for making sure people have a plan. And enjoyed this brew, and everyone have a great week. Thank you all.